So who's really in charge of India's voter lists? Is it the Election Commission, the body that runs the biggest democracy on the planet? Or is it the Supreme Court, the ultimate guardian of the Constitution? We're about to dive into a massive constitutional showdown over the one thing that makes your vote count, a fair and accurate electoral roll.
And really, it all comes down to this one single powerful question from the Supreme Court. It's a direct challenge, you know? It's asking the Election Commission for transparency, not just as a nice-to-have, but as a core pillar of your right to vote.
Let's be clear, this is not some minor squabble. It's a full-blown constitutional disagreement. You've got the institution that runs the world's largest elections on one side and the final word on the Constitution on the other. So let's break down exactly what they're arguing about.
Okay, so the Election Commission, or the EC, they kick things off with a pretty bold claim. They're basically saying that when it's time for a special revision of the voter lists, they have these really broad powers to do whatever they think is necessary. But you gotta ask, where does this power even come from?
While the EC's entire argument, it hangs on this one specific bit of law, Section 21, subsection 3, and it all boils down to this one crucial phrase, as it may think fit. For the Commission, those 5 little words are everything. They see it as the source of their power, giving them a ton of leeway. And get this is how they interpret it. Their lawyer literally argued in court that this section unshackles them. Unshackles. That's a strong word, right? What they're implying is that they can pretty much bypass the standard everyday procedures if they decide it's necessary for a special voter roll revision.
But that makes you wonder, doesn't it? Can any power in a democracy really be unshackled? Well, the Supreme Court had a very different take. They stepped right in to put a major check on this claim of unlimited authority. So here it is, the heart of the conflict. On one side, you've got the EC saying, we're unshackled. But on the other, the Supreme Court pushes back hard. The court's ruling is crystal clear. No power, no matter how wide-ranging it seems, can violate fundamental ideas like natural justice, which, just means a fair process, or the guarantee that every citizen is equal under Article 14 of the Constitution.
So what's the bottom line here? The Supreme Court isn't saying the EC has no special powers. It gets that they need discretion to do their job. But, and this is a big but, it draws a very firm line in the sand. Discretion is not the same thing as untrammeled or unregulated power. There are still rules, and they have to be followed.
Now, I know this can all sound like some high-level legal debate, but the Supreme Court itself said that this whole issue has serious consequences for every single one of us. So let's bring this down to earth and talk about why this matters to you, the voter.
So let's just cut to the chase. If the whole process of fixing voter lists isn't transparent or fair, what are the actual real-world consequences? What happens to the average person?
The answer is huge, and it's shockingly simple. You could lose your fundamental right to vote, just like that. If your name gets dropped from the list without a fair process, well, you're silenced on Election Day. And this isn't just some what-if scenario. The court found this is a very real risk.
In fact, you won't believe this, but the EC's very own report on a revision in West Bengal had this absolutely stunning admission. They found discrepancies that were so bizarre, they said they defy science. I mean, what on earth could defy science on a voter list?
Okay, brace yourself for this one. In West Bengal's electoral roll, officials found 2 individual voters who were each listed as having, wait for it, more than 200 children. Yep, 200. That's not a typo. That is a glaring, science-defying error that shows just how badly things can go when the system isn't transparent and regulated.
So after hearing all the arguments and seeing the potential for these kinds of crazy errors, the Supreme Court delivered its final verdict. It set up some really clear guardrails for the Election Commission, basically reaffirming that no power cannot exist without rules.
And here's the final mandate from the court. 4 clear rules. Number 1, be transparent. Number 2, be fair and just. Number 3, uphold equality. And number 4, and this one's critical, if you're going to deviate from the normal way of doing things, you have to write down your reasons. It's a simple but incredibly powerful framework for accountability.
You know, when you boil it all down, this case asks a fundamental question. How do we keep our most powerful institutions accountable? Look, the Election Commission needs flexibility, what the court called the widest discretions, to do its enormous job. But this ruling is a stark reminder that discretion can never mean unchecked power. So the final question isn't just for the courts, it's for all of us. How do we make sure the guardians of our democracy stay transparent, fair, and always answerable to the people they serve?